Good morning, security gang, and welcome back to the CyberHub Podcast, Wednesday, December 17th, 2025. My name is James Azar. I'm the host. I'm also a Chief Information Security Officer by trade. Thank you all for tuning in. Today is we have a great show today. It's also a big day today. So on the confirmation front, almost 11 months after President Trump has been sworn in as president, and then about 9 months since Secretary Hexeth has been confirmed as the Department of War. Kirsten Davis is up for confirmation today on the Senate to take over as the CIO at the Department of War. I believe the Sean over on CISA is also up for confirmation today. So tomorrow's show, we could be covering the appointment of two industry vets taking their rightful leadership positions after many, many delays. So sending positive vibes your way, Kirsten and Sean. Good luck today in the Senate. It's expected that they will pass. Both of them will be voted in, by the way, just so you know, there's no drama there in that aspect. But, asking senators to actually do what they're supposed to do, because that's the job we voted them in to do, that, folks, is a different conversation. But that's not why you're tuning into this show today. We're talking cyber, so let's tell you what's on the shelf today for the show. Sandworm is back on the grid. Battery storage systems are raising red flags. PDVSA suffering a cyber hit. 5.8 million people impacted in a credit data breach. Fortinet authentication bypass is getting exploited in the wild. And that's before we get to the Android Cellik twist and policy moves in DC. All that happening on today's show. So buckle up. Let me grab my double espresso so we can power through this morning's show. Look at that beautiful double espresso. Coffee cup cheers, y'all. I'm drinking Black Rifle double espresso this morning. That's the company a few weeks ago that I said the espresso wasn't very good. This isn't their most darkest espresso roast, but it's okay. I mean, on a morning where you don't want a very strong espresso, Black Rifle passes that test. I haven't seen it pass the other one yet. All right. We'll get to Russia's GRU Sandworm targeting the U.S. energy sector, and new reporting is showing that Sandworm is probing and exploiting the energy sector networks with living off the land types of techniques, vendor remote access, and even edge devices weaknesses. Their focus includes on IT and OT crossover points like engineering workstations, historian servers, and even remote access services. There's an elevated risk of service disruption or even pre-positioning inside control networks. A regulatory scrutiny of segmentation or incident response lags would be probably epic in proportion. You should be enforcing phishing-resistant MFA on all remote access, especially vendor accounts. Now, in most power stations, there's a button, a literal button you press for remote access for your vendor, and then you turn it off when they're done. Literally, it's unbelievable. I spent the last 3 years in energy seeing the stuff I saw. There's good security hygiene. The fact is, though, there's edge devices that are sitting on these endpoints that are required to be there. Those edge devices either require one of two things. They either require stronger firewalls or they require network obfuscation. For years, I've been arguing that in OT, you need to hide your OT to the world through network obfuscation. Because once you do that, then the threat actors don't see what edge devices are sitting behind that point, because everything is obfuscated. Unless those items, unless those edge points are in a vulnerability that you can find on Shodan, you pretty much eliminate that risk, and you buy yourself time. You buy yourself time to patch, you buy yourself time to better design, and it takes a while to get things done in the power industry. You should be putting HMIs and PLCs behind firewall jump hosts. Again, I would put those behind network obfuscation tools. I would 100% put it behind network obfuscation. Hunt for new local admins within your environment for any unexpected RDP or VPN after hours. And you should be script interpreters on engineering workstations, verify offline immutable backups of controller logics, and receipts, all of that will go a long way. Again, the Russians just showing you that, like the Chinese, they're picking up on the playbook and they're moving along with it. So Amazon was the group behind this one. They found that the same group has used novel vulnerabilities in years before, switching and exploiting misconfigured customer network edge devices in 2025. Again, they were looking at a bug impacting WatchGuard years ago. Now they're going after edge devices as well. So again, everything I said in the last 3 years, not to say I told you so. That's not the point here. What I've said is what Russia is learning in Ukraine will translate to their playbook for everyone else. So they're testing it on the Ukrainians. They're successful against the Ukraine. They're then duplicating that success across Europe, the US, and other geopolitical strategic environments for the Russians. And that will continue until there's a stop to all of that. We'll see when that happens. All right. We'll move to battery energy storage systems. Cyber risk climbing. Industry analysis is warning that BESS deployments, concrete cyber and physical risk. They have internet reachable gateways. They have third-party monitoring and even weak role separations across operations and maintenance vendor. A compromise could trigger an unsafe state where equipment damage or even grid instability would come into effect, and it could create a ripple effect downstream. So this is happening as utility scale battery energy systems are facing heightened risk from nation states and criminal threat actors, according to the Brattle Group and Dragos. This is the BESS deployments are expected to grow over the next 5 years by anywhere between 20 to 45%, which is why you're seeing this become a kind of red flag now. Because if you can address this at the installation part, then you can really fight that risk downstream as well. All right, we'll move to Venezuela, where it seems like Maduro's just having the worst year. He's the Maduro, the president of Venezuela, is the one guy sitting there going like, is it 2026 yet? Because I want 2025 to go away. His boats are getting blown up. His drug running operations getting blown up. His oil ships are getting seized, and now their oil giant operations disrupted by a cyber attack. Over the weekend, Venezuela's state oil company PDVSA was hit by a cyber attack that knocked out key administrative and export systems tied to cargo nominations and terminal paperwork. Despite an official state line that operations were unaffected, multiple reports are saying oil deliveries were temporarily suspended while systems were offline and recovery work began. The incident landed at the same week as the U.S. seized a tanker and a broader crackdown on sanctioned Venezuelan flows, with PDVSA publicly blaming foreign interest for the breach. Even as Caracas tried to downplay the impact, maritime and energy outlets are describing the real export disruption is at the terminals. And again, it's just showing you the multi-effect of how cyber is being used here. So let's just say the U.S. is behind the cyber attack. Let's just say they are. And President Trump doesn't really want to go to war with Venezuela. He says at least he doesn't want to. So how do you get a dictator out of position? You squeeze him tight so he can't pay the people that give him power. People that give him power is the military and the industrial aspect that supports his rise to power. So how do you force a coup? You get everyone to starve. Now, it's a slower operation. It could work. Who knows? Maybe. Let's move on to this one. 700 credit breaches impacting 5.8 million individuals across the country. Automotive credit services providers 700 Credit reporting data theft affecting 5.8 million people. The data often included names, addresses, contact information, and application credit-related metadata from dealer integrations. Identity theft and synthetic identity creation and targeted fraud for the auto loan industry in general could rise with this, and it's already bad enough. I mean, people just try to walk into car dealerships with synthetic identities to buy cars. If you're not freezing your credit across all three bureaus, if you're not monitoring it, it's easy for people to do this. Easy for people. Car dealerships all day long, man. All day long. When we bought a car a few months ago, and I was talking to the finance manager at the car dealership while we were out there, and he said they see fraud at least 2 to 5 times a week of someone coming trying to buy a car with a synthetic identity. And he goes, and now we have tools for it. And we end up calling the cops, and then these people get arrested. But this one is only going to add to that type of fraud. Regulators, so 700 Credit now having to notify 5.8 million people across 18,000 dealerships. The breach occurred on October 25th, involved a compromised third-party API linked to the 700 Credit web application. So we have that there as well. Let's move to some vulnerabilities, because Fortinet is saying that attackers are exploiting the newly patched Fortinet authentication bypass flaws. Within days of the 40 advisories, threat actors began exploiting authentication bypass issues in the Fortinet gear. That's the 40 OS, 40 proxy, 40 web. Unsupported trains are at heightened risk, so your edge devices could be taken over, which could lead to policy tampering, credential theft, and even pivots into internal applications. Patch to the new supported version immediately. Remove public management. Put admin plane behind VPN or IP allow list. Hunt for rogue admin users, unexpected API tokens, and config drifts. Add hash-based config integrity alerts. And if patching is delayed, deploy virtual patching and WAF and monitoring for known exploit patterns. All of that will come into play there as well. So there's that. A Cellik Android malware is building malicious clones of Play apps. The researchers are detailing that the Cellik, which repackages legitimate Play apps into Trojanized builds to steal credentials, abuse accessibility services, and even gain persistence. Distribution relies on smishing and sideloading, not even Google Play itself. The BYOD and frontline Android fleet face accounts compromise, and data exposure could be there. Help desks can be tricked into MFA resets. So you want to enforce MDM, block sideloading, and USB debugging, require Play Protect and current OS web view, mobile EDR for VIPs and shared devices, disable accessibility permissions for non-vetted apps should be in a play for these types of attacks on Android. The state of Texas, let's move to some compliance stuff. Ken Paxton has sued more people in the last several years than I can imagine for the state of Texas, now suing TV makers over alleged data collection without consent. Texas filing suit alleging certain smart TV vendors collected and sold user data without proper consent. Vendors are disputing these aspects. Litigation is going to test the state privacy provisions, privacy compliance, and data minimization pressure on consumer-facing telemetry is in play. Procurement may need updated privacy reviews for smart devices in conference rooms and lobbies, but that's likely not being there. It's the lawsuit did target Sony, Samsung, LG, and China-based companies Hisense and TCL. Attorney General Ken Paxton also highlighted serious concerns about the two Chinese companies being required to follow China's national security law, which would give the Chinese government access to U.S. consumer data indirectly. So really, you have a bunch of other companies on there. They're not the issue. They're just packaging all up in one to focus on the Chinese ones. That's the bottom line there. That's it. There's nothing else to it. That's what Ken Paxton is doing. All right. President Donald Trump is taking the steps to nominate Army Lieutenant General Joshua Reed, the Deputy Chief of U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, to head the military Cyber Command and NSA. The command and NSA have been without a permanent leader for more than 8 months after President Trump fired the last chief along with his NSA deputy. The administration bypassed 2 potential candidates before turning to Rudd, including the current acting Cyber Command and NSA chief, to serve as a dual-hat leader of the 2 entities, which are co-located in Fort Meade, Maryland. So the promotion would make Rudd a 4-star general, the rank needed to lead Cyber Command. And it's just showing you also why they're taking someone from Indo-Pacific. That's where they see this role really kind of playing in as we go along. And finally, in this, our last story of the day, Congressman Andrew Garabino is signaling a 2026 cyber policy outlook. He's the new chairman of the House Homeland Security Committee, but he really is he's a New York Republican, joking at a DC event over last week by Auburn University's McRae Institute for Cyber and Critical Infrastructure. He's talking about the imperative for policymaker to pass long-term renewals for the 2015 Information Sharing Act. The also program went dark when the government shuttered, but was given a new short lease with the stopgap funding. He's talking about a national cyber strategy as well, and Typhoon updates, as well as AI. So the committee leading cyber seems to want to be more active, at least from its chairman's perspective. We'll see if that equals to federal data privacy being pushed forth, federal data breach notification, stuff that's been put together, agreed upon, and needs to be approved. That's it for our show this morning. We'll be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern live with all the latest. Go check out cyberhubpodcast.com for exclusive content there, including part 3 of how the subscription model broke the CISO's budget. Real solutions in that article. Had great feedback. Go check it out there, cyberhubpodcast.com. Until then, have a great rest of your day. And most importantly, y'all, stay cyber.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.